Today, I had the great opportunity to sit down with one of the most prolific photographers of our time, Michael Yamashita. Michael has been a photographer with National Geographic for over 40 years and is known for his culture photography, 1.7 million followers, and his 33 stories published with National Geographic. He has 16 books published worldwide and is working on 3 more. He has traveled all over the world for his portfolio and hunted down countless images. He has shared his world with many, many viewers, and he, in my opinion, is the pinnacle of photography careers. Mike is a colleague and a friend, and it is an absolute pleasure and honor to get to know him and learn from his career. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy one of my greatest inspirations, Michael Yamashita.
Nice to see you. It's been a long time that we actually were face to face.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I was just wondering, did that 100 photographers that we identified or had that contest, did that go anywhere?
I got it right here. Check this out. I got it right here.
Oh my. Yeah, okay.
It's so cool, and we're right up in the very beginning. I'll have to see if I can get you a copy.
Yeah.
Where
is that a blurb book, or how did you produce that?
I didn't do this. This was done by Hugs. Mark Zuckerberg's sister made these.
Oh, okay.
That's who we curated for. We curated for Mark Zuckerberg's sister's company.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So this whole book was actually produced by her. And then we're in the very back where it thanks us right here for curating it.
Okay.
Good, I'll get you a copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. That was fun.
Yeah. Well, I've been judging a bunch of contests. In fact, just today, or it's due, yesterday I turned it in. But do you know the Independent Photographer?
The Independent Photographer. Yeah, of course.
I think that's the best photo site out there. They always have great stuff, and this is the second contest I'm the judge on, and again, a bunch of great entries. And anyway, that was just yesterday. I was just thinking about the contest thing and how incredibly valuable that is for a lot of as a way of rising up in the ranks or of visibility, at least for photographers.
I mean, that's how I started. I won a contest, and from there, that fueled me to keep going. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So welcome to the podcast, Mike Yamashita, absolute, photography legend. I wanted to catch up with you, have a conversation, see what you're doing, and kind of discuss how you started with photography, where you began, because I know there's a lot of people who want to know just your journey and just kind of where you came from. So if we can just kind of, begin from I'm just going to start from the very beginning and just how did you get into photography, and what was kind of your ambition when you began? Like, what was your motivation for starting?
Okay, well, I teach workshops, and I like to tell my students that I am their best dream. And the reason is I was a total amateur, never took a course. After college, I studied Asian history, mainly for an interest in Japan, because I suddenly gained an interest after having an incident where in a dating situation, I was kind of rejected by this young lady's parents, and that struck me suddenly as growing up as an Asian American, a Japanese American. I had no sense of my roots, except for maybe the food. I didn't speak Japanese. That was the only thing I knew is, everything from about what you could eat. That was my whole Japanese vocabulary. And anyway, I ended up studying Asian history, and then as a graduation present, my father, who was a Mitsubishi, worked for Mitsubishi, got me a visa and a one-way ticket, and I went to Japan to kind of search out my roots, and I bought a camera, and it happened to be a good one. I bought a Nikon, and I thought I'd better learn how to use this thing, and no experience. I just did what everybody does. You shoot pictures, you send them back to your pet family and your friends,
Yep.
and I got hooked, and just loved taking pictures. And
How old were
somewhere,
you?
oh, it was right out of college, so I was 22.
Okay.
And looking for something to do because that was during way back. We're talking, you know, I got out of college in 1971, and the Vietnam War was happening, and I was able to dodge that. And anyway, there was very little thought as to career at that time. So there I was in Japan, bought the camera. I was had a visa where you have to leave every 6 months. So I did some foreign travel in the Far East, and otherwise I was shooting and loving it. And it was just became my passion. And eventually, within that 4 years, I met a lot of people who I joined a camera club in order to polish my Japanese, and just eventually met the right people and started working for a local travel magazine. And anyway, that's the way it all began, and so on and so forth. And after another 2 years of living in Asia, I started working for the big break for me was Singapore Airlines, and that was like the biggest account you could have. And they sent me everywhere, every destination where they flew to in Asia. And that was my first portfolio. I went to the Geographic in 1979,
Yeah.
and with this portfolio, and immediately I was offered some work by the then legendary director of photography, Bob Gilka. But the rest of the story, I can continue on, but I am talking about a photography life that doesn't exist anymore. And it's amazing to think that now, 40 years later, there is no, what I represent is a traditional life of a photographer shooting for day rates and doing stories, of course, for the best. National Geographic was it. In fact, when I started, even in 1979, people were saying, don't bother, you're not going to find any work, because the golden age of photography is over.
They
No
say
more
that
Life
today.
magazine, no more Look,
Yeah.
all of that. And, that was probably a motivation for me. I just wanted to do what I love best, and follow my lead. And anyway, Geographic, once you hook into that, there was just no looking back. I did 33 stories in the first bunch of years. There were contract was like 1 page long. There were unlimited funds. 3 to 6 months was an average assignment. But we're talking about things that are unattainable now. So I'm going to say to the photographers out there, there is still a Geographic. It's much reduced in scope. I think in a typical assignment might be 3 weeks as opposed to 3 months, as opposed to a year, which is what we were doing back when. And but it's still the only place to be. So I mean, the only place where still has big visibility in print. Of course, there's only maybe 1 million copies, opposed to like 11 million in its heyday. And so you're reaching a lot less people. But I can understand the desire to work for them because of the fact their name, their history, but they're not going to do anything anymore for supporting a photographer's lifestyle and in any meaningful way. And it's now the grant system also, so they're willing to give you a grant of say 3 weeks, and it's this lump sum, and it's not a way to make a living because that photographer is going to spend all that money on making the story work, and they're not going to set aside some for their own means, pay expenses at home. So
Why do you think this happened? Do you think just the attention span of, the generation?
partly, the death of print is everywhere. No more newspapers. We used to have two papers delivered, the local paper as well as the New York Times, and it's just a sad thing to note that in our lifetime, we actually, without knowing it, were living in the golden age of photography, and how we made a living and built these extreme large bodies of work is just not going to happen anymore because there's nobody to fund it. Whereas my whole life has been basically funded by, my photography has always been funded by Geographic or other clients, both editorial and commercial.
Yeah.
So
It seems like we need to find a new way to sustain our income to be able to travel.
and there is where NFTs come in, since I am a big promoter and talk NFTs a lot as still being a new and viable way to make a living in this game.
So you're an OG photographer. You're, 40 years in National Geographic. What was it about NFTs that motivated you to get involved?
Oh, no, I have to say was by accident.
Okay.
In that, of course, when that Beeple story came out,
Yep, same.
I'm sitting around with a bunch of well-known names in photography. If I told you who was in that group, it's an all-star list, and we were saying, Jesus, how do we get in this game? This guy just made all this money, and
Yeah.
and then when you looked at the work, it was good, so we said, well, there's room to jump into this. And then of course nobody did anything, busy with our usual lives. But these two guys, one of my Asian friends, Anla Chang, and I get a call from them, and they said, look, my son wants to meet you. He's into NFTs, which I had no idea what that was at the time. But he said, look, I want you to think about what he says and take whatever he's offering seriously. So I did. And Jason Kingdon and his partner, Jack O'Neill, they called, and these are two Harvard grads just out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, look, we'd like to possibly work with you and use your large following and archive to make NFTs. So this was during COVID, and there was nothing else going. I think I had like 3 assignments in that 2-year period, or 3 cell phone companies and Sony, who's one of my regular clients. So, that's about all my income was coming in from. And it was like, well, let's see what this is all about. And so they got me into it. And they were also babes in the woods, and that their exposure to NFTs was the NFT club at Harvard, which, who knows what went on in that.
Can't even imagine.
Yeah. So that was it. And we delved in, and I managed to, or what, well, you'll never remember this, but I was in the audience of one of the talks you were giving, and I think it was in the New York, the New York NFT conference. And I rushed the stage to meet you because I think you were moderating or something. And I said, let's hook into this guy. And so we did. And I forgot exactly after what happened after that, but
I remember exactly. I remember because meeting you, just so you understand, like when I got into photography and picked up a camera, you were one of the photographers that I looked at and said, "This is what I want to do for a living." So when you rushed the stage and I saw you, my eyes just lit up. I was like, this is incredible that Mike Yamashita is interested in the NFT marketplace. Because when I got into NFTs in 2020, 2021, there was, no market. There weren't a lot of collectors. There weren't a lot of photographers involved. So when you were sitting, listening to it, I was like, oh, we're moving. We're actually, connecting with some of these photographers that have been around forever, because you guys are legends, where I feel like I'm kind of more of the newer, class of photographers. So to get you guys involved is almost like getting the seal of approval on what we're doing.
Yeah, well, I was with Rick Smolin, who
Yep.
the big entrepreneur, photography publisher who had the I don't know, maybe you never heard of it, but it was
I have
called
his
The
book. I
Day
have
in
his
the
book.
Life. Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
have that
he
book.
okay, well, not that one book, but he did, by country and by state, and I must have taken part in at least more than half a dozen in different countries. But he created the first photo community, and before then it was like the White House guys and the AP guys, and photojournalists, and then there was my community at Geographic, and he created this worldwide group of photographers where you put the face to the name, all these people whose work you've seen, but never got to meet them. And suddenly you were sharing, not just time, but often a room with these guys on these shoots in different countries. And anyway, he was interested. Also for all the same reasons, and that's another story we might get into, because we tried, in fact, to create a group that would onboard photographers on a regular basis, photographers who are not in the NFT space.
I
Anyway,
think we're still a little too early.
yeah, too early or too late, because shortly after that, this was in the 2022, and things were already, on the way about down at that time. So anyway, so that was the entry point, and we had great success. I
What
think I
was it
had,
about NFTs though? What was it that you liked about them? What was it? Was it the technology? Was it the smart contracts? What was it about the democratization of art?
all the above. The technology was beyond me and still is, and yeah, the strategy about how to do drop and how many photos, and all of that was daunting. And
Yeah.
even just minting an NFT was beyond my capability. I have assistants here who part of the job description is they have to know NFTs. So, and of course, there's so many positives. I don't have to go into all of them, but the fact that you are totally in control, and you eliminate the gallerist, and anyway, and then of course the money at that time was pretty outrageous, and yeah, there was no end to it. So, and then the other thing is that I started getting into community because I am easily the oldest person in the space, right? And this was a
Next
chance.
to Keith Grossman.
Oh, okay, that's right, that's right. And there was, connecting with younger photographers has always been something on my mind, and I'll get there's this side of me as a minority photographer, a person of color. It was I was the first and only regular contributing photographer of color at National Geographic in its entire history, 130 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, of course, now there are many, but
Right.
nobody was contributing on a regular basis. And, uh, Jimmy Chin, of course, did a bunch of stories, but nobody did 33 stories.
Yeah.
And yeah, not only was I a regular, but I was very prolific. And I look out at the rest of the world, and there's so little representation of Asians or any photographer of color. I mean, you try and name some, and it's very in front of me now because there's the controversy with Nick Ut. Do you know about this? Where his photograph, maybe the most famous picture of the Vietnam War, the uh, picture of Kim Phuc and the napalm girl running toward you.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
well,
know that image. Yeah. I didn't know the photographer, but I knew the image.
yeah, and there's a big controversy because there was a film that slandered him, saying basically that he did not take the picture. I won't get into all the detail about that, but I recently flew to uh, Seattle uh, just to spend 2 hours basically to be on stage and defending him in front of the Asian American Journalists Association, which I have been very supportive of as a just being a, a role model. And anyway, they really disappointed me because they did not come out in full support of him. So
It's
yeah, these
unfortunate.
issues are important for me now, especially, and I'm interested in promoting, especially talent that I see out there, younger talent that are deserve a bigger spotlight.
It's funny. It's an interesting use case for the provenance and blockchain technology because this would have never happened had you had an established
Yeah,
provenance, on the blockchain.
yeah. And anyway, for all those reasons, I thought um, NFTs was a place to go. And then now even more so, having been in the community and having, benefited by these whales who supported me so much that it's not so much a give back to all these people who helped along the way. It's just um, I just see this as the future in a totally different photo landscape where there's just most of my colleagues at Geographic are fairly high and dry in terms of assignments. They're making a living, maybe teaching or photo workshops or on the speaker circuit. You get paid better for talking about it than for doing it. And so what is open to a photographer? And most difficult thing, of course, selling prints is pretty difficult thing to do. Uh, and NFTs is in your control, and there's just so many more positive uh, about the NFT world. And as I say, getting to know the community, it's been interesting to finding talent, and also I must say the diversity when you get on one of those chat rooms and you see people coming in from Nigeria
Yep.
and Indonesia and from it's pretty uplifting in terms of the scope and diversity of the community.
Yeah, it gives you worldwide exposure. I come from a print background. That was how I primarily made my income. I had galleries, I sold prints. And so when I found NFTs, it almost felt like it was like not the original, but like almost like a certificate of authenticity that wouldn't be stored in-house, but would actually be stored on a public ledger that everybody could view. And so the idea, the value that came to me for NFTs was not only the provenance, but the idea that you could leave a long-lasting legacy on, this blockchain, and it would be there hopefully forever.
Yeah.
So you came from editorial, you came from more like curated jobs. What was the value to you in NFTs other than the idea to be able to sell your art? Was there anything like, what is an NFT to you?
Well, you know, my one issue with the NFTs is it's very hard to display an NFT. In fact, I asked my assistant recently just to, can you just give me a thumbnail, so somebody asks about NFTs, I can show him these mainly photographs, and they have, that has not changed. I mean, uh, that's what I'm selling is photography that from this archive of mine. And in the beginning, I was told that don't put your best stuff up there because people are gonna he can rip you off or something. That worry that you can, second best is what you put up for this unknown technology. And right from the beginning, I said, how can you do that anytime?
Right.
Putting up a second rather than which your best stuff. I just couldn't see that either. But um, anyway, so when and this is probably a question for you, is what do you see the future of NFTs in that all these photographs. I probably own a couple of hundred NFTs now, and some of them acquired at a fairly high price tag. What's the value of those now? And do you think somewhere down the line that we're all, that was the other point, is you can't be in this for the short haul? And I think that was the geographic approach, is get in, make money, because NFTs are hot, and
Yep.
they weren't thinking long term. And it's part of it. But okay, so where do we go from here? Because
Right.
yeah.
Well, the value in NFTs, I think, was kind of skewed in the beginning because it was just such a hot moment at the time. Everyone was capitalizing on momentum. But I think, like, if you take a look at how images are stored on the blockchain and you think about how you can utilize that for your legacy for the future, let's take a look at the art that's currently selling, and let's take a look at, like, I'm going to use an example, the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
It's in a museum. It's tangible, but nobody has it in their home. Someone, owns it, but it's not in their home. It's not
Nice.
displayed in their house. They don't get to touch it every day. They don't get to show their friends. It's sitting in a museum. And that's kind of how I look at the blockchain. The blockchain is essentially like the museum, and we're storing these images in there. When you buy one, no, essentially you don't have the tangible print. You don't necessarily display it on a monitor. You have it stored on a blockchain, and it's more of, I own the Mona Lisa. No, I don't have it in my house. I let other people see it in a museum, but I own the Mona Lisa. And I think that's what it really comes down to, is I own this original Mike Yamashita. Yes, there are prints all over the world, but I own this original film negative. And that's kind of what I look at the blockchain is. It's the negatives stored in a museum on the blockchain. So anything that you're minting, I essentially look at that as I'm buying the negative of your print. I don't have any rights to it. I don't own it. I can't put it on my wall, but I own that negative. That's a big deal. And I think in 10, 20, 50 years, whenever the value is finally realized, I think it's going to be much more monumental than people understand right now.
Oh. Well, it's not an original idea in that Corbis, I don't know if you ever knew the name, but it was a big photo agency, and one of the only businesses, or in fact, the only business that Bill Gates owned outright. And he bought the Bettman Archive, which is this huge historical collection of photographs, and it's all stored underground in some former mine shaft, hundreds of feet underground. But it was his idea that once you and he gathered all these uh, pieces of art as well as photographs, and it was Corbis was a photo agency, and he was had the dream or the idea that you would or every home would have a big monitor on it in it on the well, we all have big monitors, but a monitor dedicated on the wall to art, and you could check out the Mona Lisa for a week or more, and then you could put something else up there for a photograph, and that's the way. I don't know, and now that I'm saying that, I'm sure there are people who display their NFTs in that way.
Absolutely. I do. I
You
have
do.
multiple screens. Yeah, I have multiple screens. I think we're going to get to a point where it's inevitable that screens will be just as good as physical prints.
Mhm.
And once we cross that line, I don't think physical prints will be dead, but I do believe that industry will slow down a lot because I have so many collectors, but they're out of walls. They don't have any wall space left. So how do you continue to sell them art? They've asked me for years, well, can we do digital? Can we do TV screens where we put, a DVD in there and just cycle through your images? And so I think it's inevitable because collectors need this. They run out of space, so they want this. So we have to figure out a way to provide that. It's a matter of time before we get to the point where screens are completely, indistinguishable between an actual print. So I think once we get there, that's also where the value of NFTs is going to become, maybe even supersede the actual print prices, because if you think about a print, the archival longevity of something of a print, 100 years, 200 years, let's say 300 years at the very max.
Yeah.
An NFT, as we know, unless there's a solar flare that's going to wipe out the blockchain, it's going to be there forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So, yeah.
no, I was going to say we already are seeing this development. I can remember perhaps that was the first curated display of NFTs was at in Miami. You curated a bunch of us
The photo exhibition.
photo exhibition, and those were little screens.
You have no
And-
idea. I had to run to Best Buy and buy laptops and screens. Like, it was such a wild event because I was just like, I didn't really want to do it because I didn't want to be a curator. I didn't want to be any type of like photography community leader, but they asked me and no one else was willing to do it. And I was like, you know what? This needs to be done. Like, we need to have a photography gallery, especially for NFTs. And so, yeah, when I showed up, there was nothing ready. I had to get like everything set up. And I remember like you showed up, everybody showed up, and then I immediately had to leave for my daughter's ballet the next day. So I was there till like 7 p.m. and then just bounced. But it was that was the first NFT photography gallery ever in history.
Yeah.
It had never been done before.
Yeah, and then I got invited to the Biennale in Venice.
Yep.
And
I was a part of that too, yeah.
yeah, and the screens were bigger, but yet, and then
We were kind of a joke.
yeah, and it was, but at least it was being recognized. And then
Yep.
The next 2 years later, I was invited again, and I went to see this. Wow, it was just so different. There were, big screens and
Yep.
things to walk through, and anyway, I can see that it's keeps growing, though. I'm part of a couple of exhibitions coming up where 35 prints in Sharjah, and that's happening in February, and then I have another one in Florence that will be about 100 prints, and there'll be big sizes. It's still we're not there yet as far as display, and of course photographers covet exhibitions
Well, and prints are cool, but
Yeah.
it costs a fortune. I mean, I just did
Yeah.
an exhibition in Dubai, and it was around $50,000 to get all the prints there, to ship everything,
Wow.
to get it's a fortune. And it's like, if we had done digital screens, next
Yeah.
to nothing.
Yeah, and then we talked about this because this charge is a big deal, and there are a lot. I think there are 60 other photographers times at least 30 prints, and they burn them. after the and spare no
Wow.
expense on these prints. There's 40 by 60s and 30 by 40s. I think that's the smallest size, and then there's going to be some big panoramas in my case because my show's on the Great Wall. But and they even chose you're even allowed to choose the background, meaning the color of the wall,
That's
as
cool.
well as the color of the carpet. I never heard of that before, but
That's brilliant.
anyway, there's a lot of room for innovation and display of NFTs, and I imagine you will be in on the vanguard. So anyway.
Yeah. I remember with when I did my first gallery, I laid the carpet myself. I painted the walls myself, and I remember that was such a hard decision to figure out what is going to make the images pop. So I think that's such a brilliant concept to let the artist actually choose what's going to show their image.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's super important. I can imagine like having all that work sent to somewhere and then just having it all burnt when it's over.
yeah. Yeah, it boggles my mind, and of course, I've asked previous exhibitors, can't we get like half a dozen of us or a dozen to ship them all, like say to New York in a
Yeah,
container? But even that seems to be very prohibitive in terms of the cost. So
it's expensive. I mean, everything that I shipped and printed for Dubai, I left it there. There's
yeah,
just, it's too expensive to ship back.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's another great use case for the NFT technology for sure. But I think like as we expand, like you said, we're still in the very early stages. You know, we're still, I think, in my opinion, a joke of the industry. Most photographers look at this, or even artists, and NFTs, Ponzi, scam.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like we spent in 2021 so many hours on Clubhouse trying to onboard artists, explaining to them we are making money. This isn't a scam. This is the future of how we democratize art. But unfortunately, it just where there's money, there's going to be scammers, and they're going to flock to it. So it's going to take time to weed out the scams to eventually get to this organic plateau where all of us can succeed.
Right, right. Well,
Yeah, and you were saying that Rick Samolan was one of the like original community creators. What did he think of the NFTs and kind of what we were building?
well, we were trying towards the end, maybe it was in 2022. We spent a lot of time and energy and money on creating a platform. Justin Aversano had one
Yeah,
with what did they? And they were, I don't know how successful it was. It
it didn't
lasted.
work out.
It
Yeah, it's
lasted
hard.
for, yeah, what was it? A couple of 6 months at least. But
Yeah, Quantum lasted, I think maybe, yeah, 6 months to a year. I know Justin worked really hard, but he admitted like it's just not easy.
yeah, and Rick was even more ambitious. He said, "Well, what do we onboard? Two photographers a month and introduce their work to the NFT community, and start minting their most famous photographs as NFTs." But the expenses involved
Mm.
for the startup, and then at that time, since things were already taking a dive, he did not want to risk his good reputation on
Mm.
a failure. So we didn't take it any further. But that was the idea to bring in a much larger community, which I still think is viable somewhere down the line.
Yes.
And I think the more uh, classic, and I know photographers whose work is already out there and displayed in many places, to upgrade the level of NFTs. But because for all the good I see out there, there's too much mediocrity in general with the NFT world. I think there's a lot of room to bring the level of photography
Yeah.
to a higher level. So
Well, I think we quantified and the NFT community with value that was unsustainable because everybody, even new photographers were making hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And it was just completely unsustainable. So I think what we have to kind of do, I think, is like go back to the drawing board and understand that the NFTs is more, the value is in the community. The value is in the actual creation of a community that can ultimately push this narrative forward. And I hate to say the word propaganda, but that's kind of what it is. It's like this propaganda of democratization of art, the availability of being able to mint your, legacy on the blockchain. I think that's what we have to kind of go back and take it back to that moment where we all discovered these NFTs and said, "Oh, what can we do with these?" Not who's going to buy them.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of time.
Okay. Well, that's all good to hear. And I'm
Yeah.
sort of waiting in the wings and watching as some of my friends in the space are kind of tipping their feet into the water. Uh, they've
Were they turned off at all about the National Geographic drop that happened? Did that kind of sway them?
Oh, well, let's talk about that since
Yeah,
you and I
let's
were
dive in.
intimately involved, and you were the first to raise the flags and say, no, 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 you guys are doing it all wrong. This is the wrong platform. Basically pointing out that they didn't know what they were doing. I forgot, were you in there when we had a face-to-face with them?
I was in every meeting.
Okay. No, but I
Yep.
mean, this was like we were there, and Ruben Wu was there, and you and who else? I can't remember, but that that was just a low point. But again, a failure in understanding among the photo community as it exists at Geographic. There just
Yeah.
total no meeting between the two communities. So
Well, I think there's two things that happened. It's a giant corporation with a very small curated team to be able to onboard a very risky enterprise. And so I think it was like a nepotism moment where they chose somebody that they knew, somebody that was, someone knew somebody, and they were like, let's choose this company. I think it was Snow Crash or whatever. Let's use them to use the smart contracts when they could have used Transient Labs, they could have used Manifold, they could have used anything that was Web3 native, but they decided to kind of go with like a more nepotism kind of like choice, which was let's use someone we know. And I know we all brought it to their attention that these guys had zero clue of what they were doing. The NFTs needed to be marketplace agnostic. They were only, in one marketplace. They couldn't be traded outside of Snow Crash. Everything that had been from the start, went wrong. And it was, if anything, the National Geographic is a guide of what not to do in this space.
yeah.
And I hate to say that because my dream as a photographer I started 20 years ago, and my dream was always to become a National Geographic photographer. And I applied, I spoke to them, and always the response was, do you have a college degree? What do you specialize in? Well, landscapes. We have no interest.
Yeah.
And so when I finally got onboarded by National Geographic and all this happened, I was like, this is peak for me. This is the pinnacle. And so when it all fell apart, it was probably like one of the most devastating moments of my career because I literally just removed the National Geographic tag from my bio, just, because it was like, this isn't how I wanted to be onboarded. This is not what I dreamed of.
All right.
So I think like the outside community that was watching it and seeing what was happening, why in God's name would they ever enter our marketplace when they saw something like that?
Yeah, not only that, in the Geographic way, they are always in charge. So, you as a photographer, us as photographers really, in the end, have very little say about what they're doing because they are supposed to know what they're doing, and that's their approach. And the sad thing now is, I'll just tell you a little bit about what's working. Yeah, of course, it's still my brand. I have friends
Yep.
still working in the office, and we used to be a vital part of the whole process, right up until the not just the final choices for the photographs, but also in the layouts. And so you'd come in from a shoot, and if it was in the film days, you'd sit there and go through every roll, frame
Mhm.
by frame, and sitting next to a picture editor, which is, by the way, like just a great way to do anything. Is I don't believe that every photographer is their best editor.
Totally.
Yeah, and to have a collaborator to, say, that picture really doesn't work, and here's the reasons why, and that's an amazing learning experience as well as,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that no longer exists, and they are just like everywhere else. Okay, show us the pictures. The picture editor edits them, and then I understand they even cut that person out. There's no more picture editor before they choose the final and send it to the layout people. It's the layout person who has total control, and of course the editor of the magazine, which is the case now. And Nathan has no photo background, so anyway, yeah, it's a sad case, the way it used to be and the way it is now. But
Well, I know we touched on this in the beginning, but why do you think that is? Why do you think that, I know that photography hasn't lost value because if you go on Instagram, it's just a flood of photos and people spend hours scrolling through Instagram looking at photos. So it hasn't
yeah,
lost value.
yeah.
It's just maybe lost a way to monetize. But why do you think this is happening?
Because it's print, and that was the only thing available for us. And when every picture was curated, really, because to have a photograph displayed, you had to put it in a magazine with ink, and you know that nobody thinks that way anymore, and everything's digital, and it's a much better, easier delivery system. And gradually, print has just died. It's not the fact that photographs are no longer, you know, viable, or I mean, look at Time Magazine. That they need, or as well as the Geographic, they need to have a print edition in order
Mhm.
to have a cover story, for example. And if
Right.
I don't know, most people don't. I still subscribe to like Time Magazine and Smithsonian, and I don't know how many other people are, but I still love to see that picture on the page. And you will notice if you go to uh, Time Magazine, which used to, publish mostly multiple picture spreads and
Yep.
small frames. Hey, yeah, they got a lot of doubles in there now, and photographs are big part of the magazine, and the look of the magazine depends on that. And uh so again, photography and photographers will always be there. Photographers, though it's always been a 1% game, is now maybe 1% of 1% of 1% who are actually going to make a living doing this. And very interesting, actually, for me to listen to some of your previous photographers on this podcast, because they come from a world that is totally different, where they go out on the street and look for a picture. And
So different.
yeah, in my case, I went on all these trips to mostly foreign lands, to Japan and China, my two big subjects. And I was always looking for a picture. You did not go to a place and look around wondering what to shoot.
No,
I
you're
was going to
hunting.
a place specifically because my story was taking me there.
Yep.
I knew I was going to find a photograph because I was looking for it. So you go to this site because there's some special mountain or something that leads to this, makes some sense in the story, or everything is pre-decided. Otherwise, how can you do a story on a huge geographic area? You curated in your brain, in your research, to go to a place, to make a frame, and then once you were there, it's always it's your vision. And as I always like to say, it's what you see here in your eye before you click that shutter. And now, it, uh, yeah, going to a
Is
place to hear some of the stories, just looking for, I don't know, in some people's case, they like to shoot at night in the rain, and so that's all you're gonna, that's what they concentrate on. So if it's raining and uh, they're out shooting, or that kind of subject specific, but yeah,
so
very different.
well, you and I were before the iPhone, before phone cameras, before the Instagram. We were, like the hunters of the shots, looking at guidebooks, just showing up places, trying to hunt down those images.
Yeah, hunting is a good word.
Yeah, that's
Good way
kind
to
of,
say it.
yeah, it's just you're hunting that visual. With the new photography, do you think this is a side effect of the iPhone, of Instagram?
Yeah, and that old adage, what's the best camera? Well, it's the one in your hands,
Yep.
and it's likely to be cell phone. I have shot for every cell phone in China, and they all come from China. The only one I haven't shot for is the iPhone.
Okay.
But yeah, and there are so many more brands out there, I can tell you, that are much better than the iPhone.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, I just had an assignment with Oppo, and the ease, the fact it's always with you. The Oppo has 4 lenses, and they're real. I mean, it's not they have a real 200 millimeter lens in there, and
Yeah.
it's just. And as we go along, it's just going to get that better, and they're going to probably come up with different designs that makes it even easier. And so you got all the major camera manufacturers worried about it. I'm about to go to a Sony event that happens every year, Condo, and I'm very happy that they're still holding it. But I'm sure there are all these camera companies that are quite worried that traditional cameras are no longer necessary to make great frames, and the immediacy of the digital of the cell phone trumps, and it's the fact that you are there when the whatever it is happening, that um, you instantaneously
Yep.
you are inspired, and click, you get the picture. That's
Does this make you happy as an early onboarded photographer, seeing all these people being capable of being able to become a photographer or being able to take photos? Because when we got on, it was expensive to own a camera, and not only that, it wasn't cool. Like, we weren't exactly considered the cool kids.
Guy, yeah,
Exactly, we were kind of
some
nerds.
nerd. Yeah,
Yep, we were the nerds. We were literally considered like this wasn't some cool thing to be a photographer, but now it's cool.
yeah.
It's a good. So are you happy with, like, does this make you happy as an early onboarded photographer to see photography getting its moment?
Well, the other thing is that is also what's made it very difficult for anybody to make a living, because why pay for a picture when it's already out there? And you could and any given time you can pull up a picture on the net that has something that has been taken of a place, or something that um, because everybody has a camera of some sort, and therefore everybody is a photographer. And it's the easiest thing to claim, no matter what you're doing, that it gives you a purpose in your life, that you are a
Mhm.
photographer, and you're making art, or any that's
I actually think it's easier now to make money in the field of photography, and
really.
the reason is, because real art shines now, because it's all these people that are taking photos realize how hard it is
Mm.
to actually take a beautiful image. Like, we can all get lucky and go outside and capture a beautiful sunset, but to tell the story behind it, to make the image come to life, that's a talent. That's something that is learned after mastering your craft over, 20, 30 years. So I think, if anything, it has actually helped us as photographers, because all these people have onboarded into photography and realized, wow, it's not as easy as I thought. Because how many people would walk through my gallery and say, he's selling this for $10,000. I could shoot this with my iPhone. But then they go out and shoot it with their iPhone and they're like, oh, I can't.
Well, we should talk about that, because let's introduce AI. And
Yes.
I think AI is killing the photography business, in that why would you need a photographer, especially in a commercial sense, when you can describe to ChatGPT to give me a photograph of whatever it is in the style of. Yeah, we've been playing with this because there are some lawyers who are trying to hone in on the training sites, because where do they get these the ChatGPT in creating photos? They have a bank of 1 billion photographs that they've taken from every source you could think of, from Instagram to people's websites, so you say, take a picture of a Japanese garden in the style of Michael Yamashita or something very specific, which
and it will reproduce it.
We've been trying to do that to find a connection between the real thing, which they've used my photograph for, and what pops out on in front of you when you ask those questions. So it's difficult, because they take little elements from different billion photographs and put it together. But because of that, and how you speak to ChatGPT is very specific, but the more specific you can get, you can create photographs for whatever use you have, and therefore that is also taking work away from the traditional photographer who would have been getting a day rate. So then the other question is, shouldn't the real photograph, and getting back to NFTs, meaning a photograph that has not been changed by AI, wouldn't that be more valuable? And
Yes.
especially if in my case, I have a tear sheet or magazine or some way easily of proving that this is the real thing. And we started with my NFTs putting in the metadata so people could indeed see that, and therefore create the rarity value of it, in that, hey, this is a real picture. Here's even the specs: 1/25 second at f8 is, it's all in there in the metadata. And we started publishing that stuff with every one of my NFTs.
Well, let me ask you this, Mike. Do you have any vinyl records?
I don't, and I remember pitching them in in one kind of ceremony. I think we pitched them all, and of course now, yeah, I see your point.
Do you like DJs or do you like live bands?
Oh, DJs, I guess, is my main source of music. Yeah.
You don't listen. You don't do live bands too often.
Well, you mean going actually to concerts?
Yeah, concerts, like listening to a live band. You go to an event. Would you prefer listening to a DJ at a wedding or a live band?
Oh, well, part of my because of the public exposure that all these speaking things that I've been doing, and with crowds, when I come home, I do not want to deal with a crowd. So the last concert I went to was Bruce Springsteen in the Meadowlands.
Let's say you show up to a wedding, though. You show up to a wedding.
Okay.
would you prefer that there's a DJ spinning a record, or would you rather see Led Zeppelin show up?
Oh gosh. Well, I can tell you exactly from, I'm a volunteer fireman.
I didn't
And,
know that. That's
oh
so
God,
cool. In New
yeah.
York?
No, of course. Well, I'm in this little burg that I'm living in New Jersey, Chester,
That's
New
so
Jersey.
cool.
Yeah, and I've been a fireman for, well, I just received my latest uh, uh, pin that I get a
That's so
star because I've
cool.
been a fireman for 40 years.
What? I had
Yeah,
no, that's so cool.
yeah. Well, it's community service, and also I have to say the fires make good pictures, and
Yeah, I was about
I
to say
got
you have
it.
to,
And
yeah.
my fireman colleagues just love the fact that and posting pictures of them and heroic looking like heroes, and you know,
What a
uh,
badass story. I fought a fire with Mike Yamashita and he took photos with
oh
it.
yeah.
That's
Well,
such
you
a
can see
great
it.
story.
Yeah, Ralston Engine Company is who I roll with, and my pictures are accompany their Instagram feed. You'll see
What a
plenty
great
of it.
story.
But yeah, what was I talking about in order to bring them up? Uh, anyway, that's part of what I do. It's community
We were
service.
saying like live bands. Would you prefer to see a live band or a
Yeah.
DJ?
Okay. So we have the dinner every year. The photographer, the excuse me, the fireman's dinner. My wife calls it the fireman's ball from way back. That was the idea, but we every year we choose different restaurant, and depending on what is has been given to us, the chief, who happens to be one of my best friends, um, Tom Montgomery, he's a musician. And so he gets like these huge bands. It's amazing to entertain us. And my pictures are running in the background, and
So cool.
but in a smaller venue, if we don't get depending on the restaurant that's been chosen, often it is just a DJ, and uh, you know, the band is entertainment, and so you don't get the people up there maybe doing, dancing. Of course, it's kind of odd to see my elderly colleagues out on a dance floor, but
Well,
yeah,
this is leading me to a point.
okay,
So you like live bands.
yeah,
You have listened to vinyl.
yeah.
Okay. Now
Well, I
let's
grew
go.
up on vinyl.
Yep. So let's even go a little bit more forward. I'd like you to tell me a story behind one of your most famous images.
Oh boy.
I know, but
Okay.
this is going to lead me to a point. So just let's go into basically just any story about like one of the images that you really covet.
Okay, well, I can tell you the first picture that we sold as an NFT, and it
Okay.
is totally in fights. We had no idea how to price it, and yeah, Jason and Jack, we had a number of these photographs that would not, we were told, would not fly as straight photos. You
Okay.
had to add motion or something to it, and we hired Zoe Winters. You remember her?
I love Zoe. God, I
Yeah.
remember Zoe. She's so awesome. Yeah, her art. I loved her art.
Is she still out there? I don't know, but
She's still making art. I don't know if she's still with NFTs, but I remember on Clubhouse, she's an incredible artist.
yeah. And so we had her add motion to this photograph. It's a picture of maybe 100 monks hunkered down
Okay.
in the snow at a prayer session, and people said, "No, you can't sell that because it's just straight photo." So Zoe put expressions into about half a dozen of these monks. So there's a guy with prayer beads in one corner, and he's now moving it with his eyes. And there's another kid giving me sort of an evil eye because he was probably didn't want his fact that I was up there taking pictures, and his eyes are moving, and somebody else is over in a corner is kind of standing up. But it was really well done. But and we sold it. we didn't know anything. So we said, okay, we're going to start this auction at $10,000. And you don't start an auction with a price that was so high that, anyway, there was no bidding on it.
Yeah.
But fortunately, Drew Marshall, big whale in the space,
Love
he
him.
bought it. And that's what really got us started. And, I look back on that and say, wow, how did this happen? Well, there it is, this one photograph that didn't think it was, which we didn't think we could sell, and then put it at a high price, and boom, it went
Where,
off. And that was
where did you
my
take the
beginning.
image?
Excuse
Where
me?
did you take the where did you take the image?
Tibet.
Shoot it.
And
Tibet.
Tibet
Okay.
continues to be a big thing for me. And in fact, I'm going there next at the end of this month to continue this passion I have for Tibet and documenting the changes and trying to photograph what's left. But
So this image that you took in Tibet,
yeah,
just tell me a little bit of the story, the background. You got there. There's these monks. Like, how did this go down?
well, it's became my passion. I spent about a 5-7 year period pitching Geographic on nothing but Tibet stories in order to get me there. And that's the way we would do things, is we would pitch our own stories. And, I ended up doing 3 Tibet related stories, which gives you the chance to go back several times to the same location. And
Okay.
that's the way you make great pictures. So by having that opportunity repeated several times. So yeah, it was
What's the story
snowing.
behind this image? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the picture, which is
I know I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the one that Drew purchased. It's a beautiful image.
yeah. And
Yeah.
anyway, it's become a signature picture, and that's sold well as a print, and then as an NFT. So
Can you kind of just tell me like what is behind the story, the meaning of it?
okay, so it's Lebrang Monastery, which was a teaching monastery and the biggest one outside of Tibet proper, which is very difficult to work in Tibet proper. This is in Sichuan province, what they call Kham, which is actually it's in, doesn't matter. No one will know where these places are, but there are 2 Tibets. There's the
Okay.
one that's specifically Tibet that in China, and then there are pockets of Tibetan cultures in different other provinces, and this is one that's outside of Tibet. So we got great access. I was there to shoot the Tibetan New Year, and part of that is what the monk, and it's all about the monks. Let's face it, because they wear red robes and extremely photogenic. And
Yep.
anyway, in this setting, I had snow, which has been kind of a trademark for me. I love snow. I love the snow as a textural thing, and subdued light. I'm not a blue sky photographer, I like to say, but anyway, so it's and once I had this photograph, it's just been published everywhere. But
So,
I'm not sure. You want to know the circumstance about shooting it? Because
well, I think I'm just kind of like leading to the point of how are you going to produce that type of soul of an image produced through AI? You have a story behind it. You have all these struggles that got you there. You have, National Geographic that you had to pitch on them. You had to raise the money to get there. There's a story behind this image where this is why I disagree with AI taking anything from us, because I think it's become symbiotic with us. I don't believe that it's ever going to take away. I look at it as a tool for us to use, but not something that's going to steal from us, because there's always going to be people who love to collect vinyl. There's always going to be people who want a live band as opposed to a DJ. And there's always going to be that guy who wants to hear the story as opposed to the guy who typed the prompt to make the image. So I agree that it is trained on our work. It can produce literally anything. It can reproduce my work in a matter of seconds where it's going to take me years to make that image.
Hmm.
But that's the story behind that image that makes it so valuable. Anybody can take a beautiful image. We can all walk outside, get lucky, and capture a sunset. But
Right.
can you tell a story behind that sunset? Can you tell the journey? Can you explain? Can you put that on a wall and make someone cry?
Mm. Mm.
That's the difference.
Okay. Well, I'm all for that. And the only problem that I'm seeing is there'll be question marks about the authenticity of every photograph because it's so easy to, even if you have an existing photograph, to add and subtract people within the frame. And the other thing I just want to say is I know nothing about Photoshop other than, I have
Same, same.
I got assistants who do it for me, and nothing against AI or anything. I just want to spend most of my time in the field, and
Same.
that's why I'm so challenged by computer and tech and everything else. Since
I
I
couldn't
pay
afford
very little
Photoshop.
attention to it. Yeah.
When I got into photography, I couldn't afford it.
Oh,
I used
okay.
Picasso. It was like this Google free editor
Uh-huh.
to edit my digital images. And before that, it was film. You were just in the black room playing with chemicals.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, I couldn't afford.
Same
So I get it.
school.
Like, I didn't want to learn how to do Photoshop. I just want to take photos. I want to create.
Yeah,
I don't want to sit there in front of my computer for 20 hours and edit a photo. It would drive me insane.
yeah, yeah.
So I completely get that. But I think that's where the inherent value lies, is that the image was created by a human. And yes, it will be easier to falsify, but there will also be ways for us to prove that we created it. There will be technologies that will allow you to mint from your camera. There will be technologies that will, we have video, we can show the behind the scenes footage. I think this will, if anything, art is inevitably going to evolve no matter what.
Hmm.
That's just a guarantee. And we can choose to evolve with it or we can stay behind. And a great example is digital and film. You can stick with film
Hmm.
and you can stay with it. And I remember when everybody started switching over to digital and everyone telling me, don't go to digital. It's the dark side. The digital is the dark side. That's what I heard all the time. Don't switch.
Okay.
And then medium format Hasselblad came out with a 40 megapixel camera. And I'm like, I'm done with film. There's just no reason to stick with this anymore. And now you're seeing it's harder to find film. It's harder to buy, and film
Yeah.
eventually is going to be obsolete. There's
So,
no question.
but at the same time, I have one of my assistants is shooting film, and really, that's it seems like this is making a big comeback for
Because
film,
people
which
always collect vinyl.
for me, yeah, and for me, I find that incredible considering right now I'm doing well, I've got several books ready to roll, but and two of them are mostly film, and this one I'm working on now in Japan is more than 50-50. It's probably 70-30 film versus digital. And I can tell you those digital images really sink. And of course, it's much easier to
Hmm.
be shooting in digital. And I was a late comer, isn't that, as a so-called master of color in film. To make the switch digital, I came on really late, somewhere around 2008. But now that
Same.
after that switch, it's just my life became so much easier than carrying 300 rolls and a rollerboard on board because you didn't want it X-rayed and all those other problems. But
But
yeah,
that takes me right back to AI, the story behind it. It's like Ansel Adams carrying glass plates and heavy equipment up
right.
to get this, picture of Yosemite. It's like the story behind it. It's like you can't say that with AI. It's just not the same.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
And I
hope,
think that's where the
yeah, I
value
hope
lies.
that is, and again, you would just hope that our real pictures in real time of real things and real people will, in the end, be something that's recognized as such and worthy of, especially in we're talking the NFT world, will be something that, because of that, will rise to the top. So, yeah,
Yeah, I think eventually it'll just be two sides. There will be people who are just really great at prompting, and there will be people who are just still great at taking photos. And there's enough room for all of us.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's the big question, of course, for everybody is this, the rise of AI and how it's going to change the world, and the jury's still out on so many things, and again, to be able to tell what's real, what's not real, or what's AI is a big question. So,
It's going to be, that's why I think the blockchain will be so important in the future.
okay, well, I can I am a big promoter, and
Just keep minting.
and when I'm going to Sharjah, and that this will be amongst 60 other exhibitions, and I'm going to be on the stage and to be interviewed, and I don't know who else is out there as a straight shooter, as an old legend. To me means old fart, because that's everybody goes, oh yeah, the legend. Well, they say that about, if you can reach my age still working in this business, you're going to be a legend, because nobody else is out there. And I have to say many of my colleagues are retired, just because, and once you're off the internet, you don't exist. So, there are a lot of very well-known photographers that younger ones have never heard of and don't care. So, yeah.
I've said this so many times. Persistence is key when it comes to success as being an artist.
Yeah.
If you're persistent and stick with it, you have a much better chance to just giving up and just saying, well, it didn't work out. I think like a lot of people miss the boat when they become an artist because they think, maybe this is a great way to make money, but really you're most likely not going to make a lot of money doing this.
Yeah.
You
Well,
have to really be passionate about it.
yeah. And none of us got into photography thinking we're going to make a lot of money. I don't think so. I mean,
No.
I thought if there was that distant dream that maybe I'd work for Geographic, but, in the back of my mind, I said, well, I love taking pictures, and
Yeah.
maybe I'll have a studio in my town, and, have shoot portraits. So I was just in love with taking pictures. So,
What did your parents think? Because I know I've like talked to Richard, who comes from like a very traditional Asian household, and he says like his parents are like, no, they wanted him to be a lawyer or a doctor.
absolutely. And even,
And him being an artist, they are so anti it.
oh God, well, being an Asian American, it's, third generation, but yeah, your parents sacrifice so
Hmm.
that you could have the best education. And in our case, yes, that happened. I went to Wesleyan, my brother went to Yale, and all my brothers and sisters went to top universities, and they're, everybody wants a doctor and a lawyer and other
Yep.
important services to have right in their family. But I when I chose photography, it was a good time, because my father was finally being retired after being promised lifetime employment by Mitsubishi. I mean, that was the model for Japan at the time, was, lifetime employment. But he was getting retired. He was like 75, and he was not happy, So
At
he was
75.
yeah. And so he was saying, by all means, be a photographer. And my brother, who's, a very successful investment banker working for Goldman Sachs, he didn't give a hoot about what my brother was doing. He thought it was just great that I was going to be somebody that was not entering the mainstream. And
So he supported it.
yeah, and then his biggest wish was to see me. They had that big display at Penn Station,
Hmm.
not Penn Station, excuse me. Was it even Times Square? Anyway, there was a big Kodak billboard, and
Okay.
I had a picture up there, and that was his proudest moment. It was,
That's when you made it.
yeah, and thank God it was before, so that he could see it before he passed away. But yeah, that was his affirmation that I made it as a in this field, which of course is was very competitive and
It's
still is.
difficult.
So yeah,
And parents want the best for their kids, so that, of course, they're most likely not going to support a dream of, basically accepting homelessness.
yeah,
But it's amazing that your dad actually supported your journey.
yeah. Well,
It's rare.
yeah, and it was just a question of timing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And did anybody else call you crazy for taking on the photography journey? Because I mean, what did you go to college for? I don't think I caught that.
I studied Asian history, and that was basically to learn more about my roots, about Japan, and though most Asian history courses. Uh,
And so when you took that to become a photographer, what did people think?
oh, well, again, as I was saying, it was a total accident because
Yeah.
there I was in Japan, like everybody shooting pictures of wherever I traveled to, and then that's a big thing for young photographers out there is when do you make the switch, or when do you think you're ready for it? And that's very individual. It's a question of your confidence. I mean, I having taught workshops, I know people who, even they were really good, couldn't come to terms calling themselves professionals. This one guy took every workshop I ever uh, had, and every time I'd see this guy Jack, I'd say, you're really good. Why don't you just come out with
Just
it
do
and,
this.
and be a
Yeah.
photographer, and give me your name card, which says you are. And it took him for the longest time to hand me this card that said Jack so and so photographer. But
That's cool.
yeah,
It's funny. I think I define a professional photographer as opposed to an amateur as when you actually want to make money.
yeah.
When you finally want to get paid and you're not willing to work for free anymore, you're tired of actually, putting in the hours, you're now become a professional. When you finally decide, I want to be paid, you're a pro.
There's another side though, because Billy Din, who I
Love Billy's
think
work.
is generational talent. I look at those photographs, and
Completely agree.
he has an eye that I don't see things in the same way. And
Hmm.
I've been pushing him. I've been mentoring him among a few others. Again, seem to be all in the NFT space. Uh, to hey, I, the last thing I want to do is tell him quit your day job and become a photographer, though I think he could make it. And
I thought he was a full-time photographer.
yeah, but there's a sense, if you are really enjoying what you're doing, taking pictures is joy in itself, whether you're a professional or an amateur. It's a calling, and you
Mhm.
feel you know why. The question is, if you are comfortable um, without the card that says you're a professional, whatever it is, photographer, you can, again, and also because of NFTs, you can display your work. With the internet, of course, you've got Instagram and Facebook and a number of other options for displaying that work, and you're gaining a following. So you have, so many followers and who are seeing that, and you're getting feedback, and so you don't really have to go that route of being a professional and then having the, you know, the problems of promoting and, making money so that you can continue once it becomes a job, then you really have to hustle to be a success. And maybe the way for most NFT artists is, again, just do what you love,
Mhm.
and money comes over the transom, but it's not something that you have to do in order to pay your bills and make a living, and have a life. So I think there's a good case to be made now, and it's a different model, but maybe that's smaller community. I keep pushing these guys I'm mentoring to expand their reach and to see what's out there. There are bigger uh, you know just to be recognized worldwide, and reach different communities. And anyway, so that's I'm not quite so you quit your job and you know quit your day job because I think you can make it is no longer something I'm saying to some of these very talented people.
I think there's a thing where you have to kind of find yourself 5 or 10 collectors. Like, especially, I don't know, a lot of people don't sell prints, but when you get involved in the print world, if you can find yourselves like 5 or 10 collectors that really appreciate your work, you'll pretty much be taken care of for the rest of your life,
Mm.
because they'll continuously support you and continuously buy the art,
Mm.
especially when you can figure out a way to digitally display them when they run out of rooms on their walls.
Mm.
So I think like it's a really hard gig to get into because of the fact that there isn't a lot of income in the beginning and maybe ever,
Yeah,
but you really have to love it to be able to do this, because
absolutely.
if you don't have an obsession,
You
you're
have
not
to
going to
be
last very long.
obsessed, and that's something I also I say to everybody. It's your passion that drives you, and whatever you're doing, it's the you do it for free because you love to take
Yep.
pictures. In fact,
You just do it because you enjoy it. You said you're working on your next book. I think you've done 16 books, 17.
I'm working on 18 right now. I've got
So cool.
a new book on Great Wall just came out, and
Okay.
it's in China, but I brought a bunch of copies back. That was in June. That book was I went to the launch in China. Um, I have a retrospective. I hate to use that word retrospective because that's
Retrospective.
retrospective
Retrospective. Got it.
because that's like the end game. Oh God, well he's coming out with this retrospective. That must be it for him.
The career is over.
Yeah. But anyway, I have this book that I'm very proud of, and I haven't seen it yet because I've been really busy over the last couple of weeks putting finishing touches on that one. And then I have
Is
this,
this like looking over your career of 40 years,
yeah, it's
this book?
called East
Okay.
Meets West. It's
Oh,
all
cool.
China, and
Very
yeah,
cool.
East Meets West. So I have I have the biggest archive on China, and that includes Chinese photographers, and that's because I was allowed to roam around China even before Chinese photographers had access to other provinces. Things were very controlled in China, and plus I had unlimited film and big budgets, and so I've accumulated all these photographs over the years. And anyway, that's what you're going to be seeing in
When's
one
the book come
book.
out?
Yeah, and that's
And
imminent.
that's
So
just, is there 2 books or coming out?
that's so one's out on Great Wall, and then there's this one coming out called East Meets West, and that's about my Charna archive. And then the third that we've been working on the last couple of weeks actually is interesting to point out because it's a new publishing model, and we have a French publisher who uh, you work in stages. So we finished the dummy. I was in Maine last week working with my team, that Bill Maher, who was the former creative director at Geographic, and he's always been my designer. We've done several books for him.
Yeah, you introduced me to him in New York.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't remember, but anyway, so he's working on that, or we are working on that. And we just came up with a dummy by the last week and sent it off to the this publisher, and so this ball was rolling. But it's an interesting publishing model in that they raise the money for the book before.
So they pre-sale it.
Yeah, and it makes all sense in the world, but we're waiting now to kind of get the price tag. So they will determine, okay, this book, it will cost this much money, and we're going to do 3,000, 5,000. That's typical run these days. Very reduced from my Marco Polo book, which 240,000 copies in 14 languages. That doesn't happen anymore. But
is there a chance that you'll be minting the East Meets West book?
Good question.
On the blockchain?
And yes, for sure, I'm going to be putting those.
Good.
These I've been posting a few to my Instagram account. And, anyway, but this other form of publishing, the only worrisome thing is, how do you do distribution if it's based on crowdfunding, basically? So
it's pre-saled.
They get they pre-sale. So they get a certain number of sponsors. So in my case, certainly I'm going to go to Sony and see how many copies you're going to buy.
Right.
Are you interested in putting some money in or something? But then they also expect you, through your Instagram following, to also raise, how many can I sell to my 1.7 million followers on Instagram? And it sounds great. Hey, how many people have that many people following? But it's been my
0.1% buy it.
my experience that most of my followers are bucket list, meaning they're not really willing to spend anything. They just want to see whatever I'm posting, and maybe they want to get, that looks beautiful. You look at the comments.
Yeah, you could have 10 million followers, but it'll be a miracle if 0.1% actually purchase what you're selling.
Yeah. So that's worrisome. If they're burdened, say we do get a lot of people who want to buy this book, they have to, distribution. Who's going to take care of that? Does that mean I'm going to be sending out hundreds of
I'm not dealing with that.
out of my little studio here in New Jersey?
Been there, yeah.
Yeah. So there's some question marks there. And I think I will, I'm not quite sure how we're going to deal with this, but at least, it's in the works. So in next week, I should be getting an idea how much it's going to cost, and then second phase is to raise the money, and then once the actual print run is determined, then they print. But and that one,
That's huge, though.
That one is called The Nature of Japan, and double meaning.
Love that.
Japan is a country of nature worshipers, partly the religion, Shinto religion, that places gods and all is part of natural phenomena. And, anyway, it's a total departure, and I have to say also it's different from my storytelling normal approach. There will be no captions, and think of that. We're going to have
that's interesting.
Photos on white space. It's not a big
no
book,
words,
but portfolio treatment is what we're looking at, and there will we're going to do 2 volumes. One without people, just nature, 4 seasons.
I'll be buying that.
And then the second, it's all bound together.
Oh, that's cool. So it's multiple volumes in one book.
Yeah, and the second
That's
volume
cool.
is about people in nature.
Okay.
and the nature worship aspect. So in all cases, the photos do not emphasize people. They're uh, uh, within the landscape, or the landscape has something that's man-made in the landscape.
Okay.
Uh, and then the third volume is the actual words. I'm going to write a essay, which I'm working on now, and there'll be thumbnails that have the place and locations for, the usual treatment.
Now I understand the samurai look. You're at home with a candle writing these essays. Now I get it.
Yeah, and part of the reason is I want to reach a different uh, audience that I have never reached before, and that is the people who are willing, who will buy a print. And that's sort of the same as the NFT market. And I'm sure
Hmm.
many of these photographs will end up as NFTs. But yeah, no storytelling involved here.
That's
And
cool. That's
also,
interesting. It's a different approach.
absolutely. And for the last 3 years, I have been spending a couple of weeks or more every season in Japan. And that is different, where, again, as I said, we were always going to some place specifically to shoot something. Well, no, in Hokkaido, I'm traveling the countryside looking for a frame in the winter. I love shooting in snow. And so we're looking for things that speak to me somewhat in the same way as a street photographer, though it's much wider, looking for trees, natural things that in the landscape. And
But you don't necessarily have a visual in mind. You're actually just out there searching.
yeah, and
Okay.
the themes are obvious, as trees, and Japan, that
Hmm.
they worship trees over there. So uh, it's the only country I know where the bus tours stop at specific trees that have been made famous by photographers. Shinzo Maeda, was one of my heroes way back. He's deceased, and his son is carrying on this tradition. But they would photograph a specific tree that it caught on with the public, probably through Instagram, and you get to this tree, it doesn't seem like much, but there'll be a huge parking lot there, and busloads of people come out to have their selfie taken with this tree. In fact, we were thinking of going there, you and I, weren't we?
Yep.
Yeah, in the
Yeah. Yeah.
winter, and then
Yep.
you got sick. But yeah,
There's a few of those in the U.S. too, where people actually travel. There's one in, I think, like South Dakota. There's another one up in Oregon where people actually go,
uh,
and you'll see a parking lot full of people and hundreds of people lining up just to get one picture of this tree.
yeah, yeah. Well, there are many like this in Hokkaido, and so you get to that tree and you go like, well, what am I going to do that's different?
Different. Yeah. Yeah.
And
You don't.
so you'll see this photograph, or these photographs, that are very different from my normal storytelling mode. And uh, yeah, I look forward to sharing on as an NFT, and yeah, uh, again, that's what it's about. There's shooting and there's showing. So both which are wonderful, happy occasions. So anyway, and Japan has become my happy place, I must say. And after all this time in China, I'm tilted to spending a majority of my time in uh, uh, Japan.
Do you get more joy out of capturing a photo that you get to put on your wall, or do you get more joy out of capturing a photo that you get to share with people?
Uh, Gee, well, they go one, together, I think, especially as a professional, needing to make a living. Yeah, I look at these photographs, and of course I use Instagram as sort of sounding board just to see what kind of traction it might get. But a non-photo crowd, I mean, amateur, how does this picture relate to somebody who's not necessarily, it knows anything about photography, and that's kind of what Instagram is for me. So you see a picture that people relate to, and then that gets you thinking as to value or making
What can I do with
or
it?
something.
Yeah.
To get it again to
Yeah.
a wider audience.
Where can everybody find the new books that are going to be coming out?
Well, it's going to be on my website. Those two China books, they haven't. They're so recent. They haven't gone to Frankfurt.
Okay.
And at Frankfurt, for anybody that doesn't know, that's where foreign rights are sold. So, and of course, there are many other book fairs. Frankfurt Book Fair being the biggest, but there's the Beijing book fair and the London Book Fair, and what happens is international publishers gather together, and everybody has a booth, and here's the books out there, and they decide, oh, we want this book for our readership, or and that's the way it works. So of course I'm anxious to see how these might do on the international.
Will it be available on Amazon?
I hope so.
Okay.
I have all those books. Almost every one of them is out of print except Shangri-La, which is the book on Tibet. That's still available, and
Okay.
everyone else, Marco Polo and Silk Road books, and they're been pretty much remaindered. So the only other ones that the only things we can sell is how many I actually have in my basement, which is where they're all stored. So, yeah.
And I know you got a bunch of NFT collections minted. Can pretty much everyone find those on OpenSea? Is there anywhere else?
OpenSeas, I think, is the place where you can see pretty much everything. And
Okay.
I am waiting for your advice when to jump back into this game. I know, again, and I've tried to support those friends of mine who are already minting, but
Yeah, I saw you bought one of Billy Din's for 2 ETH. Congratulations. A beautiful piece you collected too.
yeah, but and then again, I don't know, since I was the only, I felt kind of odd that I was the only person, or he has one other guy, good friend of his, that actually bought something, but
It's an interesting market right now. We have to, I think in the beginning, there weren't a lot of sales. There was no market, and all we did was just keep minting and kept talking about it. And I think we just have to keep doing the same thing. And eventually it comes back around, or it doesn't. But either way, I think we're building on a new layer of technology that will probably supersede anything we've ever done in the past.
Yeah, well, the fact that everybody seems to think we're still in the early stages, 2021 was, it was such a banner year, and then suddenly to take this dive, and now everything's coming back up with crypto being suddenly worth a lot.
Yeah, acceptable.
Yeah, acceptable. That's the best way to put it. But
yeah, it's actually legal now.
Hoping for another boom. But it's the work that goes into it, and anyway, I'm just watching and waiting to see where things go, and then braver people than I will be testing waters.
Oh, I'll let you know when things start coming back. But either way,
Yeah.
keep collecting, keep minting. Congratulations on the books.
Yes, thank you.
Let me know when those are coming out so we can promote them, tweet about them, talk about them in the photo community. Thanks for being such a huge supporter of just what we're doing here in the Web3 space. I know that it was a huge risk for you to kind of like enter this space, especially with traditional collectors, with your background. So honestly, just a huge, just a lot of respect to, you taking that risk when a lot of people weren't willing to. So thank you from the bottom of my heart,
Yeah.
just supporting our community and just
Never
being
saw it
involved.
as a risk. Just
It's
you
good.
become a believer in it, and that's basically where if you start out as a believer, then that's half the thing there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to do this, Mike. Where can people find you if they want to,
Well,
catch
I'm
up with
all
you? I know
over.
you're on Instagram.
If you Google my name, I've got these videos that people are putting out there. I have this big presence on streaming the two videos or the two documentaries I did, and
Are those on YouTube?
yes, East Meets,
Okay.
and that is East Meets West, also,
Okay.
is the name of and then there's my Instagram, which is Yamashita Photo, and of course
Yep.
that we can get a whole conversation about that, but it's become a chore in many cases because every time you post, you're 1.7 million. Well, out of 1.7 million, and every post is only people like maybe 1/5 that number actually see it.
Is that because of the transition towards people looking at videos,
Yes,
or is it the
they're
algorithm?
pushing, the algorithm is pushing videos and stories, and so if you're not there doing that, I get 10, 20, even 30,000 likes and still lose followers every month. So I thought I'd be well over 3 million by this time, but instead it's going the other way. And I post because, clients that I'm still shooting for, they all think that because you have that big following that, everybody's going to get a bounce by a post with, the client's name on it, or and
Right.
then everybody thinks it's cash cow, like you're making lots of money, but I can tell you that most of the people that there's whatever that percentage you had, maybe it's even less in my case. I don't know.
0.1% or less.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where we are with that. So
That's kind of surprising to me, coming from like a master storyteller with still images, and yet your stories aren't getting amplified. That is kind of surprising to me.
yeah, well, that's the name of, who
It's the way of the
knows?
game. Yep.
Yeah,
It's the way of the game.
yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to speak with me, Mike.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. As you know, you are one of my idols in the photography field. I mean, you motivated me to pick up a camera. So this has been, honestly, yeah, just a pleasure getting to know you, calling you one of my friends, and being able to take the time to learn more about you and your story. So seriously, Mike, thank you so much. It's an honor.
you.
And as much as you consider the legend an old fart, you are a legend. You are not an old fart. You are an absolute iconic legend when it comes to photography. So thank you for everything you've contributed to this field.
All right, great. See you in this space. Great.
See you around, Mike.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's catch up again soon. And thank you for your time, man.
All right. Take care. Bye.
You too.